Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Victor, and I'm going to be your anchor for this training. So this is the Data Analytics Essentials course, and we are in Chapter 4, Module 4 of the series. We've looked at what data science is, analytics is. We've looked at the processes. We've looked at some of the tools. Now, we've looked at the different ways we can actually extract our data, transform our data, and start doing analysis. Now, here we're going to be looking at Excel as a case study. Now, we're going to have a separate series where we're going to be looking at least between 30 to 40, 50 Excel functions. But let's have an introduction to how we can transform data with Excel. Now, because the thing is that when you get your data is not going to come in the right format. Your data most likely will not come in the form that you will need to use it to do analysis. So that's why you need to now transform. Don't forget different stages of data analysis process. The first thing, you have to define objectives. Then you have to get the data. You have to start cleaning the data, transforming the data. Then before you start doing exploratory data analysis. So before you start doing analysis, you would need to transform the data. Take, for instance, you want to round up, you want to check the length, you want to put them in the right decimal places, you want to trim the data, depending on whether you are doing text transformation or whether you are doing numeric transformation. So let's see those concepts in Excel. So here we're going to look at formulas and functions. I have quite a lot of functions here that we're going to be looking at. So we have sum, we have average, we have round, we have if, we have count if, we have sum if, we have rank, we have today. Take, for instance, you want to pick today's date. You want to do date, you want to do a vertical lookup, you want to look for a particular item on a the vertical axis, whereas HLOOKUP is on the horizontal axis. You want to do find and replace, right? You want to find maybe a certain item or number, then replace with it something else across your Excel sheet. So I have concatenate where you're trying to join two cells together. Let's say you have name, you have surname, right? Maybe first name, this is first name. So this is Maxwell. This is Ogoroka, it's my surname. Then you want to have an email. So how are you going to have an email, right? So you want to concatenate these two guys. Let's say you have 1,000 staff members. This is Chidi. This is Victor, a surname. So you want to create emails for all of these persons and pass it to maybe tech team or the web developers to now maybe use a function or use a script and not generate email and default password for all of the staff we just recruited. So one nice way to do this is to use concatenate. So for every formula, you have to use an equal sign. Now I don't want to start going I don't want to start treating most of these functions. We're going to treat them in the live or practical sessions, which will be available on the channel. You need to understand how do you work with functions. So because to start using a function or a formula, you have to start with an equal sign. So it's good to understand the concept first before you start practicing. So it makes it a lot easier. You know the why, you know the how, you know the when to use whatever. So you say concatenate, right? This is it. So you want to concatenate between this, right? Then comma and this, right? So let's see what that gives us. Now you see for every formula, you're going to see that the formula is going to give you a hint. So take, for instance, let me take off everything. If I say concatenate equal sign, if you just type concatenate, it's not going to give you an auto response. So you need to do an equal sign, right? Then you see text one, then there's a comma. If you watch very well, zoom out. So let me zoom out a second. So let me repeat that, equals to concatenate. You see that this text one. So what's my text one? I tap on this. You see there's a comma. If you look properly, I put a comma. What's the text two? So you can concatenate as many things as possible. Then I hit enter. So it's going to merge these two guys. What about if I want to make it an email? So I can still go and do what? And put a comma and now say I'm calling in a string. So when you call a string, you normally say put it in a bracket. So I will just say at, let me try that. Say at soutechventures.com. So there's a okay. We do not wish to use this formula. Insert a single quotation mark before your text. So is it a single quotation? Let me remove this and see whether that's going to work. Didn't work. Let me use a double quote. Let me use a double. Didn't still work. Let me put a comma here at the end. Okay, awesome. So you see, for me to create an email for everybody, I just need to do this. And everybody within the office that we can generate all of their email address. So how do you do it? Concatenate H8, that is this guy, H1, a comma, you put double quotation. I think maybe a single quote is supposed to work. Let me remove the double quotation and use a single quote. A single quote is supposed to work. Didn't work. So let me just keep it to use the double quotations. Right, so that's how to, so if I keep having John, Emmanuel, Amstel, Pedro, what's the name? Godwin, Michelle, if I got her name correctly, McCain, if I got that name correctly, Isabel. So whatever you have, you just need to drag this guy and it's going to replicate. So the data analyst can actually, from the data he or she has, he can generate all of the emails and send it out. So you can actually create, you can actually use most of these functions, right? You have concatenate, you have trim, where you need to trim. You see, if you see this text now, you see there's quite a lot of space. So you just need to use the function trim. If I come here and say, I think that I am a big boy, right? If I do that here, I can just drag this guy down. This formula is already applying. So it's going to trim it to just have only one single spaces. So if you're taking this training in any of our platforms, either our physical classes or remote classes or our VIP sessions or the scholarship we have for persons with disabilities, you're going to have this sheet. So this sheet is going to guide you. And because each of the sheet has each of the formulas, the explanation, and have the sample one already done. So you see upper, if I want to turn this guy to an uppercase, right? If I say, Lord is good and his mercies endureth forever, right? So I want to turn that to an uppercase. I just need to say equal sign upper, that's the function. I grab this guy, I close it up. Sorry if I'm too fast, right? We're going to have a proper session for all of these functions. I'm just trying to give you an overview of the different functions. So you have quite a lot of functions. If you check the Microsoft site, you're going to see an archive of, I think if not more than 1,000 functions, right? So we're going to be using these functions, and we also have some advanced functions. Later on, we're going to be learning how to do dashboards. We have this sheet about, I think, 5 of them that's going to be used for the Excel session of this course. So let's go back to concept. So here we're going to be looking at formulas and functions. Pivot tables are like summaries. If you have a very big sheet, maybe sales data, HR record, maybe employee data set, maybe transactionary kind of data set. At the end of the day, you want to crunch everything, you want to put everything together and just present one single sheet. So you call that one single sheet a dashboard. So that dashboard is a representation of everything you have, even if that data set is up to 500,000 rows and columns, right? So we're also going to learn how to transform data in Excel. So let's look at some of these items. The first step in the data science process is preparing data for analysis. Data sets often contain blank rows or columns. Data in the wrong format or corrupt field entries. All of this can make the result of any analysis incorrect. So these data sets needs to be cleaned and transformed prior to analysis. So before you start doing exploratory data analysis, what is exploratory data analysis? You want to explore, you want to analyze, you want to understand the data. Take, for instance, in a hospital, you have 5,000 persons visit the hospital. So you just have different files, different folders. You need to decide which objective you want to go after when you want to do the analysis. Once you decide that, you need to now pick the right data. Once you pick the right data, you need to convert them. You need to transform them. You need to clean them, put them in the format that is going to make sense for you to be able to analyze. Once you've done that, you now start analyzing. You start exploring. You start understanding that data set. That cannot give you insight such that you're saying you have, out of the 5,000, you have about 4,000 that are under 10 years old. Then we cannot see that, okay, we just have only 200 that are adults, male. Then we have about 800 or 1,000, yes, 800 that are women. So from this data set, you've gotten some kind of insight. If you plot a chart with respect to age group, you can see that 4,000, which is about 80% of the 5,000, are all kids. What does that tell you? Don't forget, the reason why we do data analytics is so that we can make business decisions, is that we can make enterprise decisions, is so that C-level executives, the chief finance, the chief technical, the chief, all of those managerial guys, they can make decisions. So if you have a hospital that have 5,000 patients coming every month or every year, and we have 4,000 are kids, we might not know, because we're going to be seeing adults around the hospital. We're going to be seeing young people staying with those kids and the rest. We might not be able to do proper planning. So if we have this data at hand, you can now say, okay, we're going to convert most of the male wards, most of the female wards to either for for maternal health, for prenatal, or rather neonatal, and for all of those kind of services that is going to attend to those classes of persons. So you can now make better decisions. In terms of recruitment also, it can help you to know who to recruit, because you should always align whatever you are saying, align whatever you are doing to the needs you have on ground, because analytics is to make sure that you can meet business needs. So it's not enough to just pick up a data set and you start analyzing. You want to make sure that you can present that data set in terms of the analysis you've gotten from it, and also help decision making. So some of the things we're going to be looking at is data analytics tools and techniques that can help us sort and filter data in Excel, and some of the ways we can actually adjust our data in Excel. Then, of course, do some data calculations. Just like I was saying, before you can do any formula or use any function, you have to use an equal sign. If you watch, you will see that before I started doing anything, let's try to concatenate. Before I started doing anything, I use an equal sign. So if I have 4, 5, let me even just drag it. If I want to sum all of these guys, I have to first say equal sign. The function is sum, right? Open back bracket. I can highlight all of these guys. I can close it. I can hit enter, right? So it starts from an equal sign. Equal sign, the name of the function, then the range, right? As a matter of introduction, in the live session, we're going to introduce the entire Excel sheet for you guys. So one thing you should understand is that Excel, I'm using the WPS version. So this is not Excel, this is WPS. I like it because it's free, it's always updated, it's lightweight. I'm a fan of open source. I'm a fan of anything that is, I'm not a fan of having too many softwares on my systems trying to do this activation, that activation, and the rest. So that's why I'm using the WPS. If you use Excel, you still have similar environment or any other spreadsheet application. You can also still use this, you can also use the Google Docs, right? You could use that and still practice with these classes. So you have what this is, we call this menu or tabs, each of these. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 tabs. So you call this ribbon. Everything here, you call it your ribbon. So this is the home ribbon. This is the insert ribbon. This is the page layout ribbon. I'll normally tell my students, if you can understand 70% of all of the items in all of these ribbons, right, then you can call yourself a power user, right? And it's not difficult, it's not hard. Now, you call this group, you see that they're demarcated by a line, And the reason why it's called a group is because it performs related function. And most of the times, you don't need to cram anything. You don't need to put anything upstairs or force anything to your brain. Because for every particular item, there's a description right in your front. This top line, this is bold, is written, and anyone that has a shortcut, you are told. Take, for instance, I'll tell my students, I want them to be able to understand Control plus A up to Z. If I say A, B, let me see if these guys can help me complete this. He didn't do that. So you have Control A, Control B, Control C, Control D, Control E, up to Z. Maybe we'll provide that in the description below, or we'll drop it in the training group. Control A, highlight all, bold, copy, font, E, align left or center, depending on where it is, find, E, F, G, group, H is find and replace. Take, for instance, if I do Control H now, I'm going to be seeing my find and replace. H, I, italics, I, J is justified, like that up to Z. So with that, you already have 27 shortcuts. So the point is, before you start doing any formula, you have to start with an equal sign. Always have that by the back of your mind. You don't start a formula without the equal sign. So that tells Excel that this is a what? This is a function. So you see the sign there, equal sign. So if you don't put an equal sign, it won't consider it as, let me remove the equal sign for this sum now. If you don't put the equal sign, it won't consider it. It will just verbose everything out. It won't know that as a formula. So, but if I put an equal sign in front and hit enter, it's going to do the calculation for me. So always understand. And one of the reasons why we are doing some of this theoretical aspect of the course before we do the hands-on is so that you understand, because there's nothing I've taught for the past roughly about 15 years. And I've been training students in different sectors, in different niches, individuals, NGOs, government agencies, people from all walks of life, young persons, old persons, aged persons, retired persons, persons with their PhD, with their doctorate, persons with their masters, persons undergraduates, people of different race, colors around different continents. One thing I found out in learning is that if you want to be very good at what you do, you need to understand concepts, right? You need to understand concept. You need to understand why. You need to have some set of knowledge base. So that is going to inform your direction. Like I was talking to some students in cybersecurity this morning. The student asked a particular question on the training group. And I said, at this stage, you shouldn't be asking this question. You should be able to do some research. Because one non-technical skills of an analyst is that you can do research, is that you can solve problems. So I should be expecting very, very critical, very, very tough questions that you might not be able to imagine or get an answer with too, because maybe you don't have hands-on experience. But there's some basic things that you should know. And that is why we're taking this series. After this series, then we can now start using the tools. We can start using this. We have a lot of data set. We can start working on the data set. That way, you are a better professional than if you just start using the data set, you might not know how, why, when, or for instance, you might not be able to answer interview questions if you're going to get a job. So the first thing is knowledge. The next thing is tools, techniques, tricks, tips. Then the last thing is what? Is your ability to apply the knowledge that you have. So it makes you an all-round professional. So don't forget, for formulas and functions, you need an equal sign. And if you need to do that, you put an equal sign first before you put the calculation. And formulas are always referenced. Don't forget, L1 over L7 is going to pick that particular. So like this is D. This is D6. This is it here. This is F15. This is B6. So like I said, you have your menus. These are your menus or your tabs. You have your ribbons. Everything here is your ribbon. You have your group, right? You have your group, and their group in relation to the kind of things they do. Then you now have your sheets. These are your sheets. So the entire guide is my workbook. That's why it's called book one. If you are using Excel, Excel is going to say workbook one, right? So WPS is calling it book one. If I do a control N, that is control new. So I need a new sheet, right? A new workbook. So I can have sheets. I can rename this and have January. I can rename this and have February. I can rename this and have March, like that. So I can have data sets for the entire year and I do some analysis. So you call this, so this is a cell. So a cell is the intersection between a vertical column and a horizontal, what's it called? Row. So it's always a column and a row. So if I tap here, this is Q13. So you see it here, Q13. So when you say 5, 6, and you say equal to this plus this, what happens? You are saying F6 plus E6. If I enter, I'm going to have 11. The beauty about relative referencing is that if I have all of this, if I have all of this, don't forget to practice most of these things by yourself, right? Since I've already done one, it's going to take dressing, right? I could automatically replicate this. Let me undo. You just put your cursor, make sure that you have that cross sign, you click on it, and you drag down, right? If you keep dragging down, you're going to have empty. So, but once you fill in, you're going to automatically do the calculation. So that's the beauty of Excel. So you have an idea about the interface. If you want to save this file, you come to File, Save As, right? You can decide to save as an XLSX. That is the between 2007 above, while XLS is 1997 to 2003. Right? So these are the most common file formats you're going to be saving your sheet, right? Or you can just save, or with this, you can open an existing sheet. So that's an overview of the interface. Now, when we start doing our hands-on classes, they were going to be working on real data sets. Sorry, I started from the beginning. Let me get to our module 4. So formula, so it's going to be relative to the items. right? If you want the formula to refer to the same cell or range, no matter where the formula is pasted, you can use the dollar sign in front. So you're going to have something like this. So you have different functions like average. This is how to use it. So if you say average this colon this, is going to check the average between that cell range. Let's say we have somebody has this person's name is Maxwell. This person's name is John. This person's name is Jane. This person's name is Mary. This person's name is Abdul. This person's name is Fatai. This person's name is Adebola. This person's name is Desi. Dewasi. I got that correctly. So they wrote exams in math, in English, in biology, in physics, in geography, in okay, let's stop there. And this guy over 100 scored 45. This guy scored 67. This guy scored 90. This guy scored 45. This guy scored 12. Wow, Abdul, why? Okay, let's give him 90. This guy scored 45. This guy scored 78. This guy scored, no, it has to be over 100. Same thing, this guy scored 34. Did well. Hold on, let me fill this up. Let me pause. Okay, so I've finished entering these items. So if we want to do average, for instance, so we're trying to look at average, right? So we just say equal sign, average. So once you start typing it, that's the difference. And you see for WPS, why I love using it is that it gives us also the explanation. For whichever one you want to use, it gives you the explanation. So you can be doing average if a certain condition is made, but we're just trying to do average. So I just double click on it. What's the range? I pick from here to here and I hit enter and it tells me it's 43.6. So if you check the formula, is F7 to J7. That is F7, that is this guy, F7 to J7, right? So I could easily drag down and I could say I want to round up these guys to the nearest whole number. I go to home and I tap on this and I've rounded up everything to, what was it called? To the nearest whole number. So this is the average for the students, right? So that's that function there. So you have average function. Then you also have some error messages that might occur when you are doing some of your formulas, right? When you're doing some of your functions. Null, this tells you that the cell range indicated in the formula is entered incorrectly. Take, for instance, if I do something like this, if I say D, if I say C, C7, let me change this to C7 to see the kind of error message we're going to get. Sorry, C7. So C7, C7, it's not giving any error message. It's just picking only numerical items. Or let me see, C18. Let me try to create an error message. It's still not giving me. So there are sometimes you're going to be working on some things and it's going to give you such kind of error. So this explains what the error means, so that you have entered the formula incorrectly. When you have division over 0, it shows that the formula in the cell causes a divide by 0 error. So for instance, if you do L1 all over L2, where L2 is an empty cell, or have a zero value, so you have this particular error message, right? Let's try to replicate this L1 all over L2, where L1, let's say this equals to this is empty, divide by this, right? So we're going to get this. I don't know why I'm not getting some of these errors, maybe because of the version I'm using. Some versions are going to return that error for you, right? Or maybe is it because I'm already rounding up? Right? So this is supposed to return that particular error for you. So you have not available, no data is available to compute. You have ref, you have issues with the sheet. Then you have norm. The formula entered in the cell is invalid. If you have name, you have a non-existent range. If you have hash value, the function is used incorrectly. So these are some of the kind of error message you can have when you're working with Excel, and these are what they mean. So pivot, we're going to be doing pivot. We're going to be doing quite a lot of pivot. We're going to be working on dashboards also. We're going to build amazing dashboard using Excel. And what you should understand about pivot is that pivot helps us to provide invaluable insight. And also pivot is synonymous to having summaries, right? So we're going to learn how to do. So if you have a sheet, if you have this sheet, if you have another sheet, if you can have them in different sheets, you can just click everything and say you want to insert a pivot table. It's going to highlight all of these guys. You okay it. Let's say I want to have it here. Just a second. So let's call this name. But let me call this a table first. So I can click here, that is Control T, or I can say Control T. It becomes a table. So it's always good to make whatever you want to turn a pivot a table first, then before you start making a pivot chart. So let me make a pivot table, right? So I have this. I could now start saying the names of the students, right? And their averages, right? So this is it. From there, I can now insert, I can now do a chart, select the kind of chart I want, and boom, I have my pivot. So we're going to do this in detail. I'm just trying to do an introduction. So pivots are used to do summaries. So you see, I've summarized the students and their averages. And if I have, let's say, 10 sheets, I could do different types of summaries, different types of pivots. One is going to be bar chart, one is going to be pie chart, one is going to be line graph, one is going to different kind of charts. I can now put everything in one sheet. That now becomes my dashboard. So summary for this session is that we're able to have an overview of what the Excel interface looks like. We're going to be doing sorting and filtering. We're going to be using pivots. And you should by now start memorizing or start understanding and using about, let's say, 50 Excel functions. You are going to have this sheet, this Excel function sheet, and that's what we're going to use to do our hands-on sessions, right? There are quite a lot of them, right? There are quite a lot of them. Okay, so that's the end of this particular series. We're going to be moving to the next series. And once we're done with this series, we're going to be doing some labs. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, don't forget to ask, and I'm going to attend to them.